the offshore web, mapping the secret financial internet of the ultra-rich right now. As you watch this video, somewhere in a steel and glass tower in Singapore, a financial architect is designing a structure so complex that it will render a billionaire's fortune invisible to every government on Earth in the next 30 seconds. Approximately $400 million will move through a network of companies that exist only on paper, controlled by people whose names you will never know, serving masters whose wealth defies comprehension. Welcome to the offshore web, the invisible financial internet that governs more money than most nations will ever see. I've spent months mapping this labyrinth, following digital breadcrumbs through leaked documents, regulatory filings, and testimonies from whistleblowers who risked everything to expose what they discovered. What I found challenges everything we think we know about money, power, and the very nature of modern civilization. Tonight, I'm going to show you how the ultra-rich have constructed a parallel financial universe, one that operates beyond the reach of laws, taxes, and democratic oversight. The story begins not with computers or cryptocurrency, but in the fog-shrouded alleyways of medieval London, where merchant families first learned that geography could be weaponized against authority. The principle was elegantly simple. If wealth crosses enough borders quickly enough, it becomes impossible to track, tax, or seize. 5 centuries later, this same principle governs the movement of trillions of dollars across a network so sophisticated that even its architects sometimes lose track of what they've created. Consider this scenario, documented in court filings from a recent case that never made headlines. A technology mogul worth $37 billion officially owns nothing. His name appears on no bank accounts, no property deeds, no stock certificates. Yet he controls an empire spanning 6 continents through a structure involving 43 shell companies, 16 different jurisdictions, and a trust registered in a country that most people couldn't locate on a map. The man who controls more wealth than some nations have 0 taxable income, 0 legal liability, and if he were to die tomorrow, his fortune would continue operating autonomously for the next 300 years. This is not fiction. This is the new reality of wealth in the 21st century, where ownership has been divorced from control, where assets exist in quantum states of legal uncertainty, and where the richest humans on Earth have achieved something approaching financial immortality. The architecture of this system begins with what insiders call the layered entity approach. At its foundation lies the shell company, a legal person with no physical presence, no employees, no operations, existing solely to hold assets or conduct transactions on behalf of its hidden beneficiaries. But unlike the crude offshore schemes of previous decades, modern structures employ dozens or even hundreds of these entities, each serving a specific function in an elaborate financial choreography. Picture a Russian nesting doll, but instead of wooden figures, each layer contains a different type of legal entity. A Panamanian corporation owned by a Cayman Islands limited partnership, managed by a Swiss trust, controlled by a Singapore family office, with beneficial interests held by a Maltese foundation. Each jurisdiction adds another layer of opacity, another legal system that foreign investigators must navigate, another sovereign boundary that slows or stops the flow of information. The genius of this approach lies not just in its complexity, but in its exploitation of the fundamental weakness of the international legal system. While money moves at the speed of light, legal cooperation moves at the speed of bureaucracy. By the time authorities in one country gather the evidence to request information from another, the assets have already moved through 5 more jurisdictions, leaving behind only shadows and legal technicalities. But ownership structures represent only the skeletal framework of the offshore web. The blood that flows through this system is far more sophisticated, involving financial instruments so exotic that they require their own specialized vocabulary. Take, for instance, the collateralized trust receipt, a document that allows an asset to be simultaneously owned by a trust, pledged as collateral to a bank, and controlled by a third party who may be located in an entirely different hemisphere from the asset itself. Or consider the synthetic derivative position, a financial contract that provides all the economic benefits of owning an asset, without the legal complications of actual ownership. Through these instruments, A billionaire can gain complete control over a major corporation while remaining legally unconnected to it in any way that conventional investigation could detect. The voting rights flow through one structure, the economic benefits through another, and the liability, well, the liability simply vanishes into the legal equivalent of a black hole dot. The sophistication reaches its peak in what practitioners call dynamic restructuring systems designed to automatically reorganize themselves in response to external pressure, using artificial intelligence and predictive algorithms. These structures monitor global regulatory developments, political changes, and legal precedents, automatically shifting assets and restructuring ownership patterns to stay ahead of any potential threat. It's like watching money develop its own survival instincts. Switzerland, for obvious reasons, occupies a special place in this ecosystem. But the Swiss banking system that captures headlines represents only the tip of an iceberg whose true dimensions remain hidden beneath layers of bank secrecy laws that date back to 1934. What most people don't realize is that Swiss privacy protection extends far beyond simple numbered accounts. The country offers something far more valuable: legal structures that can simultaneously exist and not exist, depending on which legal framework you use to examine them. A Swiss trust, for example, can be structured so that it is legally invisible to the tax authorities of every other nation on earth, while still providing complete asset protection and control to its beneficiaries. The trust exists in a legal dimension that is recognized by Swiss law but invisible to foreign legal systems, a kind of financial stealth technology that renders wealth undetectable to outside observation. But even Switzerland pales in comparison to the newer players in this game. Singapore has emerged as the Switzerland of Asia, offering not just bank secrecy, but something far more powerful: a legal system explicitly designed to accommodate the wealth management needs of the global elite. The city-state's family office regulations, implemented just 5 years ago, allow ultra-wealthy families to establish structures that combine the flexibility of a hedge fund, the privacy of a Swiss trust, and the regulatory protection of a sovereign wealth fund. Meanwhile, Dubai has positioned itself as the hemisphere bridge between East and West, offering financial services that exist in a regulatory twilight zone where traditional banking laws simply don't apply. The Emirates' free zones operate under their own legal frameworks, creating pockets of financial sovereignty where assets can be held, traded, and transformed without ever touching the regulatory systems of their countries of origin. If you're watching this and thinking that someone needs to know about these revelations, hit that like button and share this video with someone who still believes the system works the way they taught us in school. Because what I'm about to reveal next will fundamentally change how you understand the nature of wealth and power in our world. The family office represents perhaps the most sophisticated evolution of private wealth management, transforming from simple investment advisory services into what can only be described as private governments for the old. These entities, which typically serve families with investable assets exceeding $500 million, operate with resources and capabilities that rival those of small nations. They maintain their own intelligence networks, conduct their own due diligence operations, and in some cases, their own security forces. But the true power of the modern family office lies not in what it does, but in what it knows. These organizations maintain detailed databases on political leaders, regulatory officials, and business leaders around the world. They track legislative developments across dozens of jurisdictions, monitor judicial appointments, and in some documented cases, fund academic research that supports regulatory frameworks favorable to their clients' interests. Consider the case of the Sovereign Trust Solutions Group, a Singapore-based family office that was exposed in leaked documents from 2022. The organization maintained detailed psychological profiles of more than 3,000 government officials across 47 countries, including their financial vulnerabilities, personal relationships, and career ambitions. This information was used not for any illegal purpose, but simply to predict and prepare for regulatory changes that might affect their clients' wealth structures. The leaked documents revealed something even more disturbing: the existence of what they called regulatory arbitrage algorithms, computer systems designed to identify emerging regulatory gaps, and exploit them before lawmakers even realized they existed. These systems monitor legislative language across multiple jurisdictions, identifying patterns and inconsistencies that create opportunities for legal tax avoidance or asset protection strategies. This brings us to one of the most closely guarded secrets of the offshore world: the role of artificial intelligence in modern wealth concealment. While public attention has focused on AI's potential for disrupting traditional industries, the technology's most sophisticated applications may be happening in complete secrecy within the private wealth management sector. Advanced AI systems are now capable of designing ownership structures so complex that no human could fully understand them. These algorithms can generate thousands of potential entity combinations, stress test them against every known regulatory framework, and identify structures that are simultaneously legal and completely opaque. The result is wealth architecture that is not just hidden from human investigators, but potentially incomprehensible to them. More troubling still is the emergence of what insiders call quantum ownership, structures that exist in multiple legal states simultaneously, becoming defined only when observed by specific legal frameworks. Through careful exploitation of conflicts between different legal systems, these structures can make assets appear to be owned by different entities, depending on which country's authorities are conducting the investigation. The technical sophistication of these systems is matched only by their historical precedent. The Rothschild banking dynasty, which reached its peak influence in the 19th century, provides a template that modern ultra-wealthy families have refined and amplified through technology. The Rothschilds understood that information travels faster than money, and money travels faster than governments. They built their fortune by exploiting these speed differentials, using carrier pigeons and semaphore networks to move information and capital faster than their competitors or regulators could respond. Today's ultra-wealthy employ the same principles, but with tools that would seem like magic to their 19th century predecessors. Quantum encrypted communication networks allow instantaneous coordination between family offices on different continents. Blockchain-based settlement systems can move assets across jurisdictions in seconds rather than days. And artificial intelligence can redesign entire ownership structures in response to regulatory changes faster than human lawyers can draft the regulations themselves. The Rockefeller family offers another instructive example of how wealth dynasties think in terms of centuries rather than quarters. John D. Rockefeller Sr. didn't just accumulate wealth. He created institutions designed to preserve and grow that wealth across multiple generations. The foundation structure he pioneered allowed his family to maintain control over vast resources while technically giving them away, creating a legal, perpetual motion machine that continues to operate more than a century after his death. Modern, ultra-wealthy families have taken this concept to its logical extreme, creating structures designed to operate autonomously for hundreds of years. These dynasty trusts can theoretically continue indefinitely, passing wealth from generation to generation while never technically being owned by any individual family member. The wealth becomes, in effect, immortal, a self-sustaining entity that exists beyond the reach of taxes, divorces, lawsuits, or even the death of its beneficiaries. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of the modern offshore system is how it has evolved to exploit not just legal loopholes, but the fundamental architecture of the internet itself. Cryptocurrency, originally conceived as a decentralized alternative to traditional banking, has been co-opted by the ultra-wealthy as the ultimate offshore vehicle. Unlike traditional offshore accounts, which still require some form of institutional intermediary, cryptocurrency can be truly self-custodied. A billionaire can store their entire fortune in their head, in the form of cryptographic keys that exist only in their memory. No bank, no government, no court order can access wealth that exists only as patterns of thought in a human brain. But even this remarkable capability pales in comparison to the newest developments in crypto-based wealth concealment. Privacy coins like Monero and Zcash offer transaction privacy that exceeds even the strictest bank secrecy laws. More sophisticated still are the emerging decentralized autonomous organizations, DAOs, that can operate entirely without human oversight. executing complex financial strategies across multiple blockchain networks without any centralized point of control or vulnerability. The implications are staggering. For the first time in human history, it has become possible to create wealth that is truly independent of any government, any legal system, any physical location. Wealth that can exist in a state of pure information, moving freely through cyberspace, controlled by algorithms that answer to no human authority. This is the moment where I need to tell you something important. If you're starting to understand the magnitude of what we're dealing with here, then you're ready to join a very exclusive club. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because you're about to become part of a community that sees the world as it really is, not as we're told it should be. The information I'm sharing represents years of investigation, and there's so much more to uncover together. The Panama Papers, released in 2016, offered the general public their first glimpse into this hidden world. The leak revealed the offshore holdings of politicians, celebrities, and business leaders from around the globe, exposing a web of shell companies and secret trusts that span dozens of jurisdictions. But what the public didn't fully understand was that the Panama Papers represented only a tiny fraction of the total offshore ecosystem, like discovering a single ant and assuming you found the entire colony. The law firm at the center of the leak, Mossack Fonseca, was a relatively small player in the offshore world. Larger firms like Appleby, revealed in the subsequent Paradise Papers leak, handled clients with significantly more sophisticated needs and correspondingly more complex structures. But even these revelations only scratch the surface of what investigators call the dark matter of the offshore universe. The vast majority of wealth concealment structures that remain completely invisible to public scrutiny. Consider what we learned from the HSBC Swiss leaks, which revealed how one of the world's largest banks actively helped clients evade taxes and hide assets from authorities. The leaked data showed that HSBC's Swiss private banking division maintained accounts for arms dealers, blood diamond traders, and corrupt politicians, while providing advice on how to structure transactions to avoid detection by law enforcement agencies. But perhaps more significant than the individual cases was what the leaks revealed about the systematic nature of the problem. These weren't isolated incidents of rogue employees helping clients break the law. They were standard operating procedures, refined over decades and implemented by some of the most prestigious financial institutions in the world. The UBS tax evasion scandal provided an even more detailed look at how Swiss banks operate as enablers of global wealth concealment. Internal bank documents revealed a culture where helping clients evade taxes was not just tolerated but actively encouraged and rewarded. Bank employees were trained in techniques for smuggling cash across international borders, including hiding currency in toothpaste tubes and tennis ball cans. More troubling still were the revelations about the bank's relationship management practices. UBS maintained detailed files on the political connections and regulatory influence of their ultra-wealthy clients, using this information to provide what they called regulatory protection services. In some documented cases, the bank helped clients influence legislative processes in their home countries to ensure that new regulations would not threaten their wealth concealment strategies. These scandals revealed something that insiders had long understood. The offshore system is not a bug in the global financial system, it is a feature. The largest banks, accounting firms, and law firms in the world have built their business models around facilitating wealth concealment for the ultra-rich, creating a parallel financial system that operates by entirely different rules than those governing ordinary citizens. The sovereign wealth fund represents another crucial component of the offshore ecosystem, the one that operates with the explicit backing of nation-states rather than in spite of them. These funds, which manage trillions of dollars on behalf of national governments, often employ the same opacity-enhancing structures used by private wealth managers, making it virtually impossible to determine how their assets are deployed or what influence they exert in global markets. The Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund, often held up as a model of transparency, actually provides an instructive example of how even transparent sovereign funds can operate with significant opacity. While the fund publishes detailed reports on its holdings, these reports reveal only the tip of the iceberg. The fund's actual influence extends far beyond its direct holdings through a complex web of derivative positions, lending arrangements, and strategic partnerships that remain largely invisible to public scrutiny. More concerning are the sovereign wealth funds that operate with explicit secrecy mandates. The Saudi Public Investment Fund, for example, maintains investments and strategic partnerships around the world while providing virtually no public information about its activities. The fund's holdings are considered state secrets, protected by the same secrecy laws that govern national security information. But perhaps the most sophisticated sovereign wealth operations are those that don't officially exist at all. Several nations maintain what can only be described as ghost funds, sovereign wealth operations that are funded through OPEC budget mechanisms and operate through networks of shell companies and proxy entities. These funds allow nation-states to exert economic influence while maintaining complete deniability about their involvement. The geopolitical implications of this shadow financial system extend far beyond simple tax avoidance. When the ultra-wealthy can move their fortunes beyond the reach of any government, they effectively become sovereign entities themselves, with power that rivals or exceeds that of many nation-states. This creates a new form of global governance, where decisions affecting millions of people are made by individuals who are accountable to no democratic institution. Consider the case of a single-family office managing assets worth more than $200 billion, larger than the GDP of most countries. This entity can influence commodity markets, currency valuations, and even political outcomes through strategic deployment of its resources. Yet it operates with no public oversight, no democratic accountability, and no transparency requirements. The family's investment decisions can determine whether entire regions prosper or suffer economic hardship. Their trading strategies can move global markets in ways that affect pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and ordinary investors around the world. Yet these decisions are made in private meetings by unelected individuals whose names most people will never know. This concentration of unaccountable power represents perhaps the greatest challenge to democratic governance in the 21st century. When wealth becomes truly invisible and infinitely mobile, traditional notions of national sovereignty and democratic control become meaningless. The ultra-wealthy don't just avoid taxes, they avoid the social contract itself, becoming citizens of nowhere and everywhere simultaneously. The technological acceleration of these trends suggests that we are approaching an inflection point where the offshore system becomes not just sophisticated but actually autonomous. Artificial intelligence systems are already capable of managing complex investment portfolios without human oversight. It's not difficult to imagine a future where entire family fortunes operate as autonomous agents, pursuing their own objectives across multiple generations without any human control or accountability. Some of the most advanced family offices are already experimenting with what they call immortal wealth structures, systems designed to operate independently of their human beneficiaries. These structures use AI to make investment decisions, blockchain technology to execute transactions, and complex legal frameworks to ensure perpetual operation. The wealth becomes, in effect, a form of artificial life, evolving and adapting to changing conditions while pursuing its own survival and growth. As we approach the end of this investigation, I want you to do something that will help expose this system to more people. In the comments below, type the word invisible and then share this video with someone who still believes that the system is fundamentally fair and just. Because what we've uncovered here challenges the very foundation of how we think about money, power, and democracy in the modern world. The blockchain revolution, often marketed as a democratizing force in finance, has instead become the ultimate tool for wealth concealment. While retail investors speculate on meme coins and retail tokens, the ultra-wealthy use blockchain technology to create financial structures of unprecedented sophistication and opacity. Decentralized finance protocols allow for the creation of complex financial instruments without any central authority or oversight. Smart contracts can execute sophisticated trading strategies, risk management protocols, and asset allocation decisions without any human intervention or regulatory oversight. For the ultra-wealthy, this represents the ultimate realization of financial autonomy, wealth that exists beyond the reach of any government, any court, any democratic institution. More concerning still is the emergence of what technologists call privacy-preserving wealth management, blockchain-based systems that can manage vast fortunes while maintaining complete anonymity for their beneficiaries. These systems use advanced cryptographic techniques like zero-knowledge proofs and homomorphic encryption to enable complex financial operations while revealing no information about the parties involved. The result is a parallel financial system that operates alongside but completely independent of traditional banking and regulatory structures. Transactions worth billions of dollars can be executed instantly, with no intermediaries, no reporting requirements, and no paper trail that conventional investigation could follow. But perhaps the most disturbing development is the emergence of what insiders call viral wealth autonomous financial systems that are designed to grow and spread without any human oversight. These systems use AI to identify and exploit market inefficiencies, automatically deploying capital across multiple asset classes and jurisdictions in pursuit of maximum returns. The systems are designed with evolutionary algorithms that allow them to adapt to changing market conditions, developing new strategies and tactics without any human programming. Like biological viruses, they compete with each other for resources, evolving increasingly sophisticated methods for generating and preserving wealth. Some of these systems have already achieved a form of financial immortality, generating returns that exceed their operational costs while continuously evolving their capabilities. They represent a new form of economic life, one that exists entirely within the digital realm and answers to no human authority. The implications for human society are profound and largely unexplored. When wealth becomes truly autonomous, when it can grow and evolve without human oversight, what happens to traditional notions of ownership, responsibility, and democratic control? We may be witnessing the emergence of a post-human economic system where vast resources are controlled by artificial entities that pursue their own objectives regardless of human needs or values. The historical precedent for such concentration of unaccountable power is not encouraging. Every previous era of extreme wealth concentration has eventually led to social upheaval, political revolution, or economic collapse. But those previous concentrations of wealth were at least theoretically subject to human control. The new offshore system represents something qualitatively different: wealth that has become truly independent of human oversight or accountability. As I conclude this investigation, I'm struck by a profound realization about the nature of the world we inhabit. We live in an age where the most important decisions affecting human civilization are made not by elected officials, not by democratic institutions, not even by identifiable human beings, but by algorithms operating in the shadows of a financial system that most people don't even know exists. The offshore web represents more than just tax avoidance or wealth concealment. It represents the emergence of a parallel civilization, one that operates by entirely different rules than those governing ordinary human society. It's a civilization of pure capital, where power flows not from democratic consent but from algorithmic efficiency, where accountability is replaced by autonomy, and where the very notion of the common good becomes meaningless. This system didn't emerge by accident. It was carefully constructed over decades by some of the most intelligent and resourceful people on Earth, using the most advanced technology available for the explicit purpose of escaping human oversight and democratic control. It represents perhaps the most successful engineering project in human history, the creation of a form of power that is truly beyond the reach of ordinary human institutions. But here's what troubles me most. This system is still evolving. Every day it becomes more sophisticated, more autonomous, more removed from human oversight. The AI systems managing these fortunes are learning and adapting faster than human institutions can respond. The blockchain networks hosting these assets are becoming more private and more resilient. The legal structures protecting these arrangements are becoming more complex and more bulletproof. We are witnessing the emergence of a form of power that may be fundamentally incompatible with human democracy. When wealth becomes invisible, infinite, and immortal, how can any democratic institution hope to govern it? When financial decisions are made by algorithms that no human fully understands, operating through legal structures that exist in multiple dimensions of international law, pursuing objectives that span centuries rather than election cycles, what meaning does the concept of democratic accountability retain? The ultra-wealthy have not just hidden their money, they have transcended the very concepts of money, ownership, and accountability that define ordinary human economic relationships. They have created a form of wealth that exists beyond the reach of time, space, and democratic governance. In doing so, they may have fundamentally altered the trajectory of human civilization itself. Perhaps most disturbing of all, this system operates with the implicit consent of the very institutions ostensibly designed to regulate it. The largest banks, accounting firms, and law firms in the world have built their business models around facilitating this escape from accountability. Governments that claim to serve their people have created the legal frameworks that make this escape possible. Even the technology companies that build the systems enabling this financial transcendence market their products as tools of democratization and empowerment. The offshore web reveals something profound about the nature of power in the 21st century. It shows us that the most important battle for the future of human civilization is not being fought in legislatures or on battlefields, but in the invisible dimensions of finance and technology, where decisions are made that will echo through generations by entities that may not even be fully human. As you return to your ordinary life after watching this, remember that somewhere in the digital shadows, algorithms are making decisions that will shape your future in ways you cannot imagine, serving masters whose names you will never know, pursuing objectives that extend far beyond any human lifespan. The question is not whether this system will continue to grow and evolve. That process is already underway and may be unstoppable. The question is whether human civilization can find a way to coexist with forms of power that have transcended human understanding and control. The offshore web is not just a financial system. It's a glimpse into a post-human future, where the most important decisions affecting our species are made not by us, but for us, by entities that we created but can no longer comprehend or control. And that future is not coming. It's already here.